When the X-Men live-action franchise expanded into exploring solo character journeys, fans were giddy with excitement about what this could mean for Wolverine. Looking back, nobody could have predicted that the film would become one of the more financially successful releases in the franchise, and while Hugh Jackman is largely credited with its success, the film's final vision was quite different from where it started out. In fact, James Mangold wasn't even the first director tied to the project. It was award-winning director Darren Aronofsky who first signed on to bring this version of Wolverine to the big screen. Notable for psychological, surreal, and character-driven works such as Requiem For A Dream, The Wrestler, and Black Swan, Aronofsky's vision for Wolverine would have certainly drawn on the character's darker instincts, alienation, violence, and loneliness. But alas, the project never really played out that way. While later releases got fans wondering how the franchise would have panned out differently under Aronofsky's artistry, today we're going to peek into this alternate universe and explore everything we know about this canceled movie. How did Wolverine even get a Japan movie in the first place? Before I take you through Aronofsky's vision for Wolverine, let's rewind a little to the period around X-Men Origins Wolverine. Even before that film hit theaters, Fox and the creative team were already discussing a follow-up that would take Logan to Japan. This wasn't random at all because one of the most famous Wolverine comic stories is the 1982 Chris Claremont and Frank Miller limited series where Logan goes to Japan and becomes entangled in a world of honor, crime, love, and violence. X-Men Origins Wolverine even teased this direction with a post-credit scene where Logan was seen drinking in a bar in Japan. The idea was clear. The first solo film explained how Logan became Wolverine, and the next would finally explore one of his most beloved comic arcs. Hugh Jackman had also been interested in the Japanese saga for years. He'd talked about his love for the Claremont-Miller storyline and how the first solo film needed to establish who Logan was before the franchise could take him into the more character-driven Japan story. By 2009, Jackman's company, Seed Productions, was reportedly preparing projects that included a Japan-set Wolverine sequel, though Seed didn't end up receiving a production credit on the completed 2013 film. Fox officially confirmed the sequel in May 2009, only days after X-Men Origins Wolverine opened. With the project moving forward, Christopher McQuarrie was hired to write the screenplay in August 2009. The story was supposed to focus on Wolverine's relationship with Mariko, the daughter of a Japanese crime lord, and what happens to Logan when he enters the world of samurai, ninjas, organized crime, and Japanese martial tradition. Among other things, the film would shed light on Wolverine's brand new fighting style, incorporating a range of martial arts and weapons, from katana blades to other authentic Japanese arms. By January 2010, Hugh Jackman had confirmed that the film was expected to begin shooting in 2011. A couple months later, McQuarrie confirmed that the screenplay was finished, and around that time, Darren Aronofsky entered discussions to direct the project. Why on earth did Fox think Aronofsky was the right guy for this? With Aronofsky's success in psychological thrillers and surrealist dramas, fans raised eyebrows when he became attached to this superhero project. With a history of producing deeply personal films such as Black Swan and The Wrestler, the question was whether he had any superhero DNA at all. It probably didn't help that Aronofsky had often suggested he wasn't really a typical superhero movie guy. However, it was this exact contrast that made him such a fascinating choice. Fox and Hugh Jackman didn't want the Wolverine to feel like a usual superhero film. The whole point was to make everything darker, stranger, and more grounded. That made Aronofsky's involvement exciting rather than confusing. McQuarrie's grounded writing and the real-world take on Wolverine also helped draw Aronofsky towards the project. Around this time, Aronofsky's production company, Protozoa Pictures, signed a 2-year deal with Fox Film Entertainment, covering both 20th Century Fox and Fox Searchlight Pictures. The Wolverine was expected to be Aronofsky's first picture under that deal. Jackman himself sounded extremely excited about the direction. He talked about how the film would be out of the box and different from the usual superhero fare. He pointed out that Wolverine was a dark character, and with Christopher McQuarrie, the Oscar-winning writer of The Usual Subjects handling the script, the movie already had a more serious foundation. On top of this, Aronofsky's vision was the cherry on the cake. Jackman described the project as something with meat on the bones, the kind of film that would leave audiences with something to think about after they walked out of the theater. So, after nailing down Aronofsky as the perfect guy to bring this out-of-the-box version to life, the film was set to begin principal photography in New York City in 2011 before moving to Japan for the majority of the shooting. What would Aronofsky's version have actually looked like? Even if Aronofsky's version didn't come to life in the end, we can still take bits and pieces from interviews and reports to imagine what the movie may have looked like. And honestly, it sounds like it would have given us a very different side of Wolverine. For starters, Christopher McQuarrie later explained that his script treated Logan as the only mutant in the film. Other characters who might seem supernatural or comic book-like were handled through more grounded explanations. Viper, for example, wasn't written as a full mutant in the way the final movie presented her. The idea was to make Wolverine feel like the one truly extraordinary figure in a dangerous but believable world. McQuarrie described the script as Kurosawa's Wolverine. That might give you a clear sense of the tone. This wasn't supposed to be a loud, overstuffed superhero sequel. It was a grounded Japanese crime and honor story filtered through samurai cinema, spaghetti westerns, and Wolverine's brutal loneliness. There was no heavy Jean Grey guilt haunting Logan in this version because the original script wasn't built around the same continuity placement as James Mangold's final movie. Instead, Logan was a rough, violent, and lonely figure in Japan, entering a world where his healing factor and claws made him almost mythic, but didn't necessarily make him emotionally safe or morally superior. McQuarrie has said that his version of the Wolverine was one of his favorite scripts he had written. He also said he was sorry the original version didn't work out and he wasn't involved in the final film. While conceptualizing it, he thought of it as a Marvel movie that still existed in a real world with real romance, humor, and violence. The key influences were the films of Akira Kurosawa, Sergio Leone, and spaghetti westerns. That's a sharp contrast to the final 2013 film, even though Mangold's version still retains some of that lonely samurai energy. In the final product, Logan is no longer the only mutant or superhuman presence. Yukio has precognitive abilities, while Viper is given more overtly comic book-style powers and a serpent-inspired persona. In McQuarrie and Aronofsky's version, Wolverine's uniqueness would have been central. The film would have made Logan feel like a strange, legendary outsider entering a grounded criminal world. That idea didn't fully disappear from the final film, but it was reshaped into something more connected to the larger X-Men continuity. To be fair, Mangold and Jackman still touched on the themes of Logan's alienation, rage, and pain as a quasi-immortal killing machine. So the final movie did inherit some of the emotional DNA that McQuarrie and Aronofsky wanted to explore, but their version was likely leaner, harsher, and less traditionally superheroic. So why did Aronofsky actually walk away? Now, I'm sure you must be wondering exactly why Aronofsky walked out on such an intriguing project. The official reason was personal and practical. The movie required a long international shoot, and Aronofsky didn't want to be away from his family for that length of time. Around that period, Aronofsky was going through a separation from actress Rachel Weisz, and they had a young son together. In his official statement, Aronofsky said that as he talked more about the film with his collaborators at Fox, it became clear that production would keep him out of the country for almost a year. He said he wasn't comfortable being away from his family for that long and was sad that he wouldn't be able to see the project through. He also praised the script and said he had been looking forward to working with his friend Hugh Jackman again because the two had already collaborated on The Fountain. So this wasn't presented as a dramatic, creative breakup. Officially, it was a family and scheduling decision. However, the timing couldn't have been worse for the project. Just as the movie was preparing to shoot a major portion in Japan, the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami struck, causing massive devastation and making production plans even more complicated. Fox decided it was in no rush to begin production after the damage in Japan. This combination of Aronofsky's departure and the real-world Japanese disaster pushed the movie into a pause. James Mangold eventually came on board in June 2011, and the project was reshaped into the 2013 film we know today. This wasn't even his first canceled superhero movie. Intriguingly, The Wolverine wasn't Aronofsky's first canceled superhero film. Years later, he had been attached to direct an adaptation of Batman Year One, and he even co-wrote a version with legendary comic writer Frank Miller. The film, like the comic, was supposed to be a grungy, stripped-down origin story for the Dark Knight. While a hyper-grounded origin tale sounds right up Aronofsky's alley, he later admitted that Batman wasn't really the true goal for him at the time. He was primarily focused on getting his passion project, The Fountain, made, and being attached to Batman was a strategic way to build leverage with Warner Bros. Right after Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin, Warner Bros. Was trying to figure out what to do with the franchise. Aronofsky pitched an R-rated, boiled-down Batman origin story that was much dirtier and more street-level than what studios expected from superhero movies at the time. He later described it as a duct tape kind of movie, one that would have been built around selling Batmobiles or toys. That was the problem. In the early 2000s, an R-rated superhero film was simply too early for business. Studios were still thinking in terms of four-quadrant appeal, merchandising, and broad theatrical reach. Aronofsky's take was closer to the kind of adult comic book filmmaking Hollywood would only embrace years later with movies like Logan, Deadpool, and Joker. Looking back, Aronofsky has said Hollywood eventually caught up to the idea that there could be several different kinds of comic book movies, but at the time, his timing was off. Or maybe, to put it another way, he was ahead of the business and too focused on his own dream projects to fully become a studio superhero director. What did we actually lose, and did it even matter? Even if Aronofsky was deeply focused on his passion projects, there's no doubt that his version of the Wolverine could have been fascinating. A Darren Aronofsky Wolverine movie based on McQuarrie's script, inspired by Kurosawa and spaghetti westerns, with Logan as the only mutant, sounds like one of the great superhero what-ifs. Would it have led to Logan? That's harder to say. James Mangold and Scott Frank only came into the picture after Aronofsky left, and it was Mangold's relationship with Hugh Jackman and his handling of the Wolverine that later helped lead to Logan. That R-rated 2017 film about an aging Wolverine became one of the most respected superhero films ever made, and it probably needed Mangold's specific vision to exist in the form we know today. So, while Aronofsky's Wolverine might have been artistically bold, his stepping away might have accidentally helped the franchise in a different way. Mangold's The Wolverine restored some confidence after the mixed reactions to X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then Logan gave Hugh Jackman's version of the character one of the strongest send-offs in comic book movie history. But that doesn't mean that Aronofsky's departure was good or bad in a simple way. It just means that history took a different route. We lost a potentially strange, brutal, art-house-adjacent Wolverine film, but we gained Mangold's version, and eventually, Logan. Surely, Aronofsky's fans were disappointed when he was replaced by Mangold, but all's well that ends well. Mangold definitely proved himself and rose to the challenge. While it was disheartening to see McQuarrie not remain closely associated with the final film, I believe Aronofsky's decision to step away from reinventing Wolverine accidentally landed the franchise on a path that worked out better than anyone could have expected. And I say this while still being a huge fan of Aronofsky's psychological thriller projects. But that's all from me. I'm curious to know what you think about Aronofsky's decision to step away from the Wolverine, his history with canceled superhero flicks, and your ideas for how the movie might have turned out differently if Mangold had never entered the picture. Let us know in the comments section down below, and if you enjoyed this video and our efforts in making it for you, consider leaving a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.